Hey team, Master Schiele here. Today we're going to be talking about the highs and lows of your training, how to capitalize on your highs and how to get past the lows. If you've not yet, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, all that great stuff. This will keep me sending this information to you. Let's get started. So when you are on a high, let's start on a positive note, okay? You're training, everything's going wonderful for you. Now's the time to really maximize, right? Now's the time to get yourself to the next level. So one of the things that you can start to implement right now is after your class, take 5 minutes to work on stretching. Deep stretching, just 5 minutes. What happens is the body is truly warmed up after you've been training, right? So when you take that extra 5 minutes at the end of the class, this is when you're actually going to get the flexibility to the next level, right? When you stretch in the beginning of a class, you're not getting yourself to the next level. What you're doing is you're trying to prepare the body to train. After you've trained, after you've really thrown the kicks and the techniques and everything else, now if you start to work on stretching, you'll start to see improvements. So that's really one of those things that you can do on the highs. Another thing you can do on the highs is work on implementing things that you want to constantly and consistently improve on. For example, when you're training and let's say you were sparring in class and you see, my sliding technique is not where it needs to be. In that moment, what you do is you say, all right, I'm going to take every other day and I'm going to work on sliding. I'm going to work on something to build that. So what happens is on that high now, you're saying, okay, I'm working strong and now I'm going to work on this as something extra to implement into my training. So that's something that you can really do while on that high. Now let's really quickly, let's shift gears. Let's talk about a low. And the high and the low, they're going to kind of connect right here and you're going to see why. When you hit a low, you hit this roadblock from whatever, could be injury, could be family related, whatever the reason. If you hit that low, and when you hit that low, it's important to get past it quickly, okay? So one of the things that you could start with to really help is to not overtrain in the beginning. So for example, let's say you just started training and you are a white belt and you are excited and you said, you know what, I'm going to train every single day, every moment I possibly can. Well, here's what's going to happen. At one point, you are going to hit a roadblock. You're going to have a moment that you can't train. And what happens is because you're so used to overtraining, now it's going to be the opposite, right? And what happens is when that happens, it's going to really hit you here and here, right? Because you're really thrown off. So to set yourself up for success in the beginning, what you do is you set days that you're training. Okay, so for example, what I tell my students in the school year when someone new starts, typically, let's say an adult, I would say Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Okay, you have class Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. And the reason that you do that is those are the days that you have. In between those are your relaxing days or days that you're working something for yourself. But it's not a day to go to class. Now, what happens is by doing that, you're going to really set yourself by saying, hey, I have that class, I have that moment. Now, I do suggest to my students to train every day, but it's got to be changed up some way, right? So it's not just training consistently and going to class every single moment. Remember, part of the success in training is you go to class to learn, and when you're at home, you're trying to reinforce the techniques. So homework in martial arts is really important because the homework is when you're really going to work on yourself. You're going to see the memorization. Let's say you're working your forms. How good is your form? How good did you memorize the technique? How good is that muscle memory in your technique? Well, the only way to know that is not by me taking you through the routine, but it's by you trying that routine on your own at home. Now what happens is if you get lost, when you come back to the class, you ask a question, you work with a black belt, and now you could take it to the next level. So the next time you work at home, you're ready for it. See how that works? So that is really something to set you up for success. So when you're on a low, set it up ahead of time by saying, I'm going to have my days that I'm training, and the days I'm not training, I have my homework assignments. And I think that will really help that. Another thing that you can do is remember that it's in martial arts, it's the yin and yang, right? So you want balance with everything. Too much training, not good for the body. Not enough training, not good enough for the body, right? So if you really set yourself for doing different things every day, I think that's really key as well. For example, let's say Monday you do a class. Tuesday, you work on stretching at home as well as maybe practicing your punching techniques, okay? Wednesday, you come to class, and then Thursday, you work on some strengthening. Maybe you do your push-ups, maybe you do your slow kicks, and you kind of work something like that, etc. If you do that, that's gonna really help you. Again, the highs and lows, if you set it up the right way in the beginning, it's gonna really set you up for that success. Now, another thing that you can do when you're on a high is really work on being grateful, all right? So when we're feeling great, it's great. It's an awesome feeling, right? We all know that feeling. And if you're grateful in that moment for what you have, you're gonna bring better energy to you, right? So for example, if I just kicked and I went, bah, and I kicked super, super high, I'm gonna go, just in my moment, I'm gonna go, wow, I just kicked high. That felt wonderful. I am so grateful that I put the work in to get to that, and I can't wait to get to that next level. I remember, actually, this happened quite recently, actually. One of my students, when they started, they were kicking below, almost below the knee. Now they're kicking hip level, and I'm so, so happy because that was the hard work they put in, as well as really working their stretching, right? So it's been a consistent struggle because when you kick below the knee, it's hard to get that leg up to hip level. Now they're at hip level, and I couldn't be prouder. And now, if they work it properly and they say, I'm working hip level, now I wanna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna try to hit midsection to chest level. That's where you're gonna see that success, but you gotta be grateful in the beginning with that too, right? Let's get back to our low. When you hit that low, sometimes the low might be from an injury, okay? So here is the most important thing. A low is almost like if you've ever been on the thruway. When you're on the thruway and everything's clear and you're just moving, it feels like you're really capitalizing on time. And then all of a sudden maybe there's a car accident or there's road construction or something that's going to block the drive, right? And you're just not moving as fast. And maybe you actually completely get to a stop. You have to realize that eventually, you're gonna keep moving forward. You're gonna, right? It's gonna clear up. They're gonna keep you moving, but you have to stay in positive spirits in the meantime. So a couple things that I would suggest if you ever hit an injury or something along that level is if you cannot train, still go to class. And this goes back to talking about creating your schedule. Let's say you were doing your schedule Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, for example. All right? Go to class still. Sit on the sidelines and watch your class. By doing this, you're feeling the energy of the class, you're still holding yourself accountable, and what happens is you're not getting thrown off routine. This is what most people do. They get thrown off routine. This is something that we see with our junior students a lot, with our kids. When they have something, the parents completely don't bring them to class. And the problem with that is they are completely disconnected in that moment. So what would be better? Hey, Johnny, we're gonna go to class and we're gonna sit and we're gonna watch for 15 minutes, okay? We're gonna say hi to your instructors and then we're gonna leave. You know what's gonna happen by doing that? That's gonna keep them focused. It's gonna keep them in the school. It's gonna keep them feeling that connection. As an adult, you gotta do it yourself, right? And what I suggest with that is go to class on your normal days, watch that class, and make sure you still feel that connection, because the connection is key. You lose a connection, that's what happens. And that's anything, right? That's anything in life. You lose connection, all of a sudden you don't have that same drive and you don't have that same passion for it. So never lose that connection. So what happens is if you have a good routine, you work on that, right? Now, if you have something like an injury too on that low, what you work on is you say, okay, let's say, for example, I have a shoulder injury, okay? Now, of course, I'm not giving you any suggestions, I'm just giving examples, okay? Let's say you have a shoulder injury. However, you know, the shoulder, it's wrapped up, you feel okay with that. Well, maybe what you do is you work on slow kicks. Maybe you work on some stretching. Obviously, you gotta be safe with it, right? You don't wanna hurt yourself. But, you know, example is maybe the shoulder, you can't move it, but you can work on, you know, high knee lifts. You can work on side knee lifts, right? Well, what happens is now you're still working something. right? You're really building yourself off. You're really kind of getting yourself to that next level. When I shattered my ankle, one of my friends actually made me a steel bow, a really, really heavy bow. And what I did is I actually worked on that bow because I couldn't really work on anything standing wise. And so I would actually go in sitting in a sitting position, and I would just work on something called helicopter strikes with this heavy steel bow, just to work on my strengthening and work on my technique. So what I did is I still trained, I still did something I could, and that kept me in high spirits, right? So when you do stuff like that, that's the key. That's what really helps you, right? Is doing what you can, adjusting through it. On the lows, realize that it will clear up, but it's how you set yourself for that success. Going back to that throughway, let's say you're driving on that throughway and you just say, you know what, the traffic's not moving, I quit. And you get out of your car and you just sit on the side forever. Okay, hopefully no one ever does that, but you see what I'm saying? You're never gonna go anywhere, right? You have to be in that moment, you have to say, hey, I might be moving slower, but I'm still moving. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step at a time. Never forget that. It's okay to fall as long as we fall forward and not backwards, right guys? So here's really what I wanna say. When you're training, you're gonna have highs and lows. You're gonna have those moments. You're gonna have those moments you're feeling wonderful, you're gonna feel great, and you're gonna have those moments that maybe you don't wanna train anymore, maybe you wanna quit. You need to get past those, because that is what the journey is about. When you get past those lows, that black belt, that training, let's get past black belt. Black belt, listen, black belt's 4 years of training. Let's talk about mastery. Let's talk about really, truly living as a martial artist. All those lows that you've gone through really build the person that you are. Don't forget that. So those lows are just as important as those highs. If you don't have those lows, you don't feel that connection in the art. You don't feel that connection with yourself. You have to learn to get past those. And by getting past those, it's gonna make you the best martial artist you can possibly be. I'm so grateful for you guys. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see you in our next video. Take care.